Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dave Barossi, and I serve as a sales development lead for Bayard. I'd like to welcome you this evening to our wonderful workshop on baptism with the world famous Dr. John Ronaldo, who has been a very close and dear friend of mine. I've known John for a million years. And John, welcome to the road trip with Jen and Dave.
It is so great to be here. I really want to see these buses because I suspect they're pretty pimped out, and I would love to go for a ride in it someday.
Oh, we got the music, we got the 90s music playing and all that.
Oh,
John, why don't we tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Go ahead.
sure, absolutely. My name is Dr. John Ronaldo. I am an adjunct professor and professor of practice at Santa Clara University in the graduate program in pastoral ministries in California. I'm actually based here in the Archdiocese of Las Vegas, so we still got a lot of sunshine coming into the window my way. But I've been in ministry since I graduated from college. Even before that, I was a youth and young adult ministry coordinator. I worked for the Archdiocese of LA, worked for the Diocese of San Jose. I've done a lot of coaching and training over the years. And every time I think, I'm going to escape ministry, God just pulls me right back in. So I've done some interesting work in HR and fund development as well for different nonprofits, both Catholic and secular. But at the end of the day, what I'm most passionate about is developing leaders in the church. And I always get drawn back to it. I've been teaching at Santa Clara for over 8 years now, doing that. I've been a business manager, I've been a pastoral associate for adult faith formation. I feel like I've done every role in the church, including cleaning toilets. The only thing I
Oh,
haven't,
yes, that's part of the
yeah,
job. That's part of the
yeah.
ministry. That's
The only
part
thing I haven't done is what the clergy do. That's the only job I have not done. So,
Well, John, let's talk about baptism.
yes.
And let's just start right at the beginning. Many parishes treat baptism prep as a checkbox and the hurdle for the parents. You argue it's actually the church's greatest missed evangelization moment. Why? Tell me.
Yeah, I would say definitely in the top three of the missed evangelization moments. Here's the thing. We've all seen it. Parents come and they get their kid baptized and they don't really know why. Lolo, Lola, abuelito, abuelita, grandma, grandpa are making them. They feel like they're going through the motions of just kind of doing it, and they feel like it's important. They may not fully understand why it's important, but they come. And here's the interesting thing. We're often seeing young couples who we haven't seen in a long time or ever for that matter. And my argument really is like, I don't care why you're here. I'm glad you're here. And I'm using it as an opportunity to open that door and start to build a relationship that may not exist. Now, that's not true with all of our couples that come for baptism prep, but I would say a large portion of them, 75% or so, are coming and just kind of going through the motions. What are we doing with that moment? Are we really welcoming them in? Are we accompanying them in their journey? Are we recognizing where they're at, the struggles, especially if it's their first child, and how traumatic a first child can be? I still remember when I had my firstborn 15 years ago. I was like, the hospital's going to let us leave with this baby? I don't know what to do with this. And I think a lot of parents feel alone, especially in that infant and toddler stage. What role can the church play as they come to baptism, as they come to the table asking for this so important sacrament? What are we doing with it? And that's my argument. That's like we've got to really take advantage of it and run with it. And that's why I love baptism prep. I love working with parents in baptism prep, and we'll keep doing it because I think this is just the entry point of relationship building with these young couples.
John, it's very interesting being a brand new parent. How does this work? I walk in with my child for the first time. Take it over. What do I do? What's this?
Oh.
Oh, go ahead. Help me out. I don't have children. I don't have children. So let's just say I bring my child uh, to get baptized. Tell me what happens.
Well, certainly it starts even before the day of, and how we kind of connect and build that relationship, and are we making them fill out a bunch of paperwork, which is all required. I'm not suggesting we don't do the paperwork. but how easy or difficult do we make it, right? One of the things I love to think about is kind of the systems and structures that we have in place, for them, and how do we make it easy, especially for those who maybe aren't engaged, and easy in the sense of like really communicating really well. One of the things I'm a huge advocate for is as we welcome people into baptism prep, what are we doing with the session? Are we giving them a bunch of theology and rehearsing the rite? Or are we doing something more with that? What do I mean by that? I'm not against the theology, right? I want families to know the basic theology of baptism, and I certainly want parents to know the ritual itself and the motions. Obviously, there's a rehearsal piece that comes of it. But when I think about my own experience bringing my kid to get baptized, let's just say my experience was very lackluster. I had one priest who basically said, "John, you already know all this stuff. What do we need to do with you?" Like, because I've worked for the church for a long time. Like, no, I don't know this, and I'm overwhelmed with this child. Like, and I actually was longing for more support and understanding from my parish community. My second child, I have three children, by the way. My second child who was baptized, we went through kind of the motions. There was a bunch of couples that were there with us, but we never interacted with any of the other couples that were there. I'm sitting there going, there's a missed opportunity here to build community, because we're all in the same boat. We're all figuring out this parenting thing together. There's no real good manual on how to raise a kid. Books try, but most of us try to figure it out on our own, and that's the challenge. And my take is like we've got to get these couples to be in community, certainly with the church. That would be the primary place for as we accompany them. And so I'm a big fan of rolling out the red carpet. What do a lot of families think about when they're doing baptism prep? They thinking they have to show up at the parish hall, parish basement, bad lighting, bad audio, some bad video that we need to watch, right? And really, a lot of the parents come to baptism prep with low expectations. It is what it is. How do we roll out that red carpet? One of the things that I'm very intentional about as a way to kind of quote unquote wow these families is what does the hospitality look like? What do I mean by that? What are the snacks that we're providing? A lot of us have a 2 hour session, Dave, right? We're
Yeah,
doing
oh
a
yeah.
2 hour session and we're kind of going through the motion, and are they just sitting at tables, just taking notes and listening to a lecture for 2 hours? Or are we doing something more with them? And how do we roll out that red carpet? Here's one of the ways I roll out the red carpet. What does the snacks look like? What does the room setup look like? Let me give you an example of what I often do. I try to pull out all the stops. I try not to just do cookies and brownies and
Yep.
lemonade, although that's a start, providing snacks. But like I want to wow them. So what do? Chocolate covered strawberries, charcuterie with cheese and crackers and maybe some meats. Something a little bit more substantial. If your parish allows it and your diocese allows it, I'm okay with having maybe a glass of wine or a glass of beer for them. Sodas, waters, things like that. Those little things, food especially, make people feel welcome. And what time of day are we doing the sessions? I don't know when everybody else does it. I often did it. It was about 6 o'clock or 6:30 or 7 o'clock, right in the middle of dinner time. So I wanted to really provide some food that's of substance. And in many times, especially if you're working in a Vietnamese community or Latino community, especially Filipino community, they're bringing the entire family with them, right? So if they have other
Yes.
kids, it's like the other kids are going to be there. So the big winner with other kids, besides Capri Suns and juice boxes, Cheez-Its. You never go wrong with Cheez-Its with kids. You
Oh, yes,
just win
perfect.
people over, right? And so that's one of the small ways that I'm very intentional about rolling out the red carpet and being very intentional about like these kids, these families are coming from who knows where, busy schedule, picking up from daycare, school, whatever else. They're coming to you potentially frazzled with one, two, three kids or whatnot. How do we make them feel at ease? One of the ways we do that is with food.
John, that's such a great idea. I'm coming in there. I don't know. what I'm thinking, I'm coming in there, you're rolling out the red carpet. Maybe I am bringing three or four of my kids along. What great to have some other resources there, especially maybe I'm just going to throw it out there. The Plum Gospel Weeklies,
Yeah.
some of our other resources, our sticker books from 23rd Publications or Creative Communications, some of those wonderful resources that can help maybe having a youth minister or a youth group leader watch those children in a play area or just as the parents are in another section learning about baptism. Is that what you're trying to get at? I hope that's
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a big fan of having some of these resources on the table, not just for the kids that might be present, because I've never hosted a baptism prep where I didn't have other kids present, or
yep.
even the infant that's being baptized, come to the session, right?
Uh-huh.
So I think that's why paying attention to food, paying attention to the resources that are there, and whether that's in another room, or whether it's happening in the room itself. I often would have the kids just be present in the room with us, and just have them be part of the day and just kind of expect that reality, and I'm okay with that. But part of that also, again, is what's the setup of the room look like? Is it rows of chairs? Are you doing it in the church? I'm actually really against doing an event like this in the church. And this may sound nitty-gritty detail, Dave, but I think this stuff is important to think through
Yep.
because if you're in a church where all the pews are facing forward, how easy is it for the people that are present to be able to connect with the other people in the room? So when I do it in a parish hall, parish basement, whatever space I have available, I always use round tables if I have them. And
Okay.
and the setup of the round tables with resources and a little centerpiece of the table really signifies that this is not going to be me talking to you or at you the entire time. And I want to build an opportunity for them to get to know each other. And one of the ways I do that, one of the resources I leave at the table is just a little prompt, a little slip of paper that says, hey, share with the people at your table your name, your kids, maybe where you work, right? And why you're here, why you want to get your kid baptized. And I leave that on the table so that there's conversation happening even before the official session
Yeah.
begins. And that's important to me. One other thing I do, by the way, is I always put linens on the table. You got
Yep.
black linens, you got white linens on the table. There's just something different. Look, some of us have some very beat up tables, right? We use them for youth
Yeah,
ministry,
I could
we
tell you some
use them
good
for
stories.
children's ministry, right? Some of us have tables where we could get splinters from touching them
Yep.
too much, right?
Yep.
The linens just elevate the experience just a little bit more. That's part of that wow factor in terms of just saying, okay, this is not what I expected. And
Yep.
if I can, before I've even started, if I get them in the door feeling that they're welcome, their kids are welcome, they got food, they got drink, they're talking with each other, I already have them hooked and I haven't even started. That's so powerful.
Yeah. So right now I'm in. I am being wowed. I have a good hospitality moment. I have resources there for other children. I have a speaker. Now, tell me my next step. My next step of the big part. What's the approach? Tell me.
Yeah, that's a great question. The approach is going to be very conversational in nature. I don't start with the theology of baptism. I will eventually get to that, but the beautiful thing is that there's also a lot of resources that are available to give people afterwards, right?
Yep.
I can send them whatever, right? That's going to have the theology piece stick. I do get to it. But I'm thinking, where are these families coming from? They're here. I accept them where they're at, and recognizing that maybe they're just doing this to get Abuelita off their back, which is totally understandable in terms of that. And so, what do they really need? Well, they're there. So that tells me that they're taking their faith serious enough that they're willing to kind of show up and go through the motions, but they don't necessarily know how. Amoris Laetitia talks about, Pope Francis talks about the idea of developing the domestic church.
Yes.
So, and that the church, that the parish is really a family of families.
Okay.
So when we talk about the idea of church is where we bring all families together, when we talk about domestic church, well, then there's an expectation, and this has been true since certainly Vatican II, that church also happens at home. So in my mind, how do I help families realize that one, they're the primary educators of the faith, right? We've been saying that forever and a
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
we kind of roll our eyes saying it, but it's true. It is true in that sense. So we say it, and we may tell parents this, but how do we empower them to actually live that out? So besides going straight into conversation and building some dialogue, one of the things I'm going straight for is, some of the language I've used before in the past is passing on a legacy of faith. How do we help parents pass on the faith to their kids, whatever that faith may look like? So
Mhm.
where do I start, Dave? I start with, practically speaking, how do you do church at home? Right? And it's not having a Roman missal, right? And like doing liturgy of the hours or something. Maybe it might be for some parents, um, but really recognizing that in the mundane, in the ordinariness of daily life of the family at home, God is there. That's where I start, Dave. That's where I
Yeah.
start.
So I was raised in a wonderful Catholic home that we prayed every night at dinner time in the evening. Once in a while, my we would do the rosary and all that. But as we go through this, we talk about hospitality, we talk about the beginning part of baptism. We have so many more questions. Like, what's the big advocate for mentors and couples and what's that next part of that process? We're talking about hospitality. The people are coming in. You have given them some beginning knowledge. You have welcomed them to the parish because sometimes they're going to come back and say, "Hey, are we welcomed? Do we?" They're a little afraid. They could be afraid. They could be afraid of coming. Um, so what's our next part? What's our next step after we do that little welcoming as we continue?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of we often talk about godparents and sponsors, right? And that's a
Yep.
significant role.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I think part of the session, and let's be real, most parents come to our baptism preparation sessions that we have already with godparents in mind. And that's
Yep.
fine, right? And it's my brother Paul's turn to be the godparent because I took my sister
Yeah.
last time, right? We know
Yes.
that this is what families do, right?
Yeah.
I'm married to a Filipina, right? And so like we've got like ton of sponsors, right? You've got the main godparents and then you got sponsors, for
Yes.
everything. And
Yes.
really what I've learned is that, well, the sponsors are there to help pay for the party. Great. I will take it. I have no problem with that. But I love the emphasis on that. Certainly the Filipino culture, Latino culture, and other cultures as well, is going back to that family of families. The idea that the parish is a family of families. And so how do we build a tribe? How do we build a tribe surrounding this family to support them in the faith? And this is right in the order of baptism, right? We start Mass at the baptismal font, and the priest says, what do you want of the church? Oh, we want our child baptized. And then the priest says, parents, do you promise to raise the child in the faith? Yes, we promise to do that. And then the priest turns to the godparents and says, godparents, do you promise to walk with these parents in helping raise this child in the faith? And we say absolutely. And then oftentimes we'll turn to the entire congregation that's present in the church at the time and say, congregation of God present here today, do you promise to walk with these parents and godparents as they raise this child in the faith? And what do we say? Nope, I'm out. I'm not doing it. No, of course not, right?
Yeah.
We all obligatorily say, yes, we will, we are, I do, we're going to do it. And even within the order of baptism, even within the ritual itself, it emphasizes this is not something mom and dad do alone. This is not something that the godparents do alone, that the entire community is a part of that. And so how have I practically done that, Dave? I've worked with parishes that I've worked with before in the past to implement what I call mentor couples. This is different
Okay.
from godparents and sponsors. And it's not catechetical. Okay. I'm not looking for these mentor couples to to teach all the dogma, teach from the catechism of the Catholic Church. That's not it at all. I'm looking for couples who are willing, who are a couple years ahead of them on the journey, or maybe more,
Yep.
who are
Okay.
willing to just be in relationship with these couples. You know, some of your parishes are really large, right? I here in Las Vegas, a lot of our parishes are really large. It's
Yes.
not realistic that I'm going to have mentor couples for every single family that comes to baptism, at least not right away. But I want to start somewhere, right? And so I have a little job description that I do, but really it's like go to coffee with them, invite them to mass with you, go out to donuts and coffee after mass with them, set up a family dinner with them every once in a while, attend the baptism, of course. Celebrate their 1 year anniversary of baptism. These are the types of things that I'm encouraging these mentor couples to do. There's no knowledge being passed on. It's simply about relationship building and knowing that these parents have somebody who's maybe been in my shoes before.
Yeah.
That's the family of families that we're looking to build. And start slowly with that, right? This is not something you need to run with right away, right? But all of us have done this with OCIA and with confirmation and other things. We're
Yep.
like, oh, we need to find sponsors for these catechumenates or these candidates and whatnot. Same kind of model. It's very powerful approach, and it's really simple. Again, not about knowledge. I'm looking for people who are willing to walk with other families.
So, John, would you be introducing those mentors right at that evening? Like, we have the hospitality. I'm just going to reiterate hospitality. I'm enjoying my wine and cheese or my pepperoni and crackers. My children are really involved in the play area. Maybe they're doing some crafts with from the Gospel Weeklies or Creative Communication or 23rd Publication. And you have the parents sitting at the table, they're and engaging. You gave them that welcome talk, you gave them that welcome. Would you introduce them to a mentors at that table? Would the mentors be invited for that evening?
I would invite them, and I have, and I think it's a matter of scheduling, right? It depends on how many baptism preparations you're doing and what that looks like. Are you doing them individually? Are you doing it as a group? And so I know there's a myriad of ways that parishes do baptism prep, and so I often, as a large parish, I often did in large group, and so yes, I would invite them, uh, but they wouldn't always necessarily come. Uh,
Mhm.
but even if the mentor couples couldn't come, I always introduce the concept to the families and let them know that my hope is to connect you with somebody in the next coming weeks. And here's why I like this, Dave, is because oftentimes we'll do baptism prep, the kid would be baptized, and then we often don't see the parents or the kids until your pre-K or K faith formation program. Pretty
Yep.
standard, pretty typical. I get that, right? Uh, this becomes another touch point that doesn't require the pastor to be involved in it or the director of faith formation to be involved in it, right? Supporting the mentor couple doing that. But because they still represent the parish, the mentor couples play a huge role in staying connected and keep them inviting into the community. Hey, we have a parish picnic coming up in 2 weeks. Would love for you to join us. It's really hospitality and an accompaniment. So yes, I would introduce that to them, but again, it eases the parish staff from trying to figure out, okay, how do I stay connected to these families for the next 5 years before formal faith formation begins at pre-K or K? We start empowering the community to do that. And again, this starts slow. This is a slow culture shift, but it really gets to the heart of the order of baptism, Amoris Laetitia, and who we're meant to be as church.
So our second part would be as they're at the table, we did the mentoring. Our second round, what's our next focus? What are we going to tell the parents or the parent that are wishing to have their child baptized? What's that second part look like?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the big piece is to again going back to the idea of God is present in the mundane and in the ordinary. And so what I often work with parishes with parents in this baptismal session is talking about what I call the 5 moments of importance in the family life cycle. I'm sure I stole it from somebody, but
I do like when you say this. So I want everybody to write this down. John, go ahead. I like those. I like these 5 points.
yeah, the five moments of importance in the family life cycle. And these are the predictable things that every family goes through almost every day. And I'll run through them here real quickly, and then I'll go back and talk about some of the ideas I give these parents to to say how do you insert God in
Yep.
the routine? Because here's the thing. Oftentimes early on, these parents aren't going to go above and beyond if they don't have the tools or resources to do it. But if I can give them a little tool to insert in the things that they're already doing in their life, it makes like, oh, okay, I can do this, making it easy. So here are the 5 moments: exits and entries from the home. All right. Right. What does the morning look like? What does the afternoon or evening look like when we're coming back? Right. When we're leaving and when we're coming back. Bedtime. That's number two. How do we take advantage of bedtime, especially with little kids? Although even with my 15-year-old, I take advantage of bedtime. Car time is the third time. Look, a lot of us are Uber parents. I mean, that's what we do. We drive
Yep.
our kids everywhere. How do we take advantage of car time? For number four is meal time. I know not all families are having meals all the time together, but many families still are having a handful of times a week. The younger the kids are, the more likely families are having dinner at the table more often, potentially. Right. And then the fifth one is memory making time. Okay, like vacations and fun times and stuff like that. So let me start real quickly with exits and entries, Dave, if that's okay. So
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I jump in and I say, what does it feel like when we're leaving the house? Are we leaving calm? Or if you're the Ronaldo household, every morning is a struggle to get people up, to get people their shoes on, to get packed up, to get out the door,
Yeah.
and then we all leave frantic, right? And so one of the things that I've tried to do and fail a lot more often than I'm actually successful at this with Dave is how do I calm the exits from the house in the morning, especially as we're taking to school, daycare, work, whatever, and have a moment of blessing. And often what I tell, I'm often the one driving the kids to school in the morning, so sometimes it's exits, but sometimes it's car time. But do I do a quick blessing with the kids? One kid, two kids, three kids, however many kids you have, and say, hey, may God bless you. All right, may God bless our day as we go out there. And that's it. That's all I ask people to do. It's not a long prayer that I'm looking to do. I'm just a simple thing and maybe do the little sign of the cross on the forehead and say, may God be with you this day, and then go off, right? Because we know the mornings are frantic, right? It's a small little thing that we enter God into it. And then entries. When we come back home, what is it like when you come back home? Look, I'm a little bit of a control freak, Dave. You may know this about me.
Yeah. Okay.
I got some issues. So the first thing I do when I get home or with the kids is like, what homework do you have to do? And make sure you empty your lunch, right? Take off your shoes, right? Do I say hello? Do I welcome them? Do I, and that's less about entering God into that moment, but more about what kind of home am I building? So exits and entries, that's number one. Those are just a couple ideas. Number two, bedtime. All right. What do we do with bedtime? This is a perfect opportunity, especially when they're younger, where we're more likely to have routines. Here's a very simple routine. After the kids have showered and bathed and brushed their teeth, whatever like that, can you do a short story time with them? Could we do short Bible time, Flam weekly with them? And then can you do a short prayer? And my kids have got, because we've been very intentional about it, uh, especially my youngest, who's now 10. They're growing up, right? But he still loves, bedtime, the bedtime routine. And so we'll do a short little story. We'll do some sort of children's Bible, toddler Bible, depending on how old they are, some story in the Bible, and then we'll do a quick prayer. And often it's as simple as Hail Mary, glory be our Father. So I'm teaching the kid the prayer while we're also
Yep.
doing it. And then with bedtime, especially when they're calm, I put my hand on their forehead and I always do the blessing. Almost every night I do this. I've been doing this for 15 years. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Do a little sign across on the forehead. Maybe I'll sing him a song. I love singing, right? Yeah, I'll sing him a song, put him to
Yeah.
bed, right? But that moment, right, we're inserting the Bible and we're inserting prayer and it's quality time. We all have bedtime routines. Now, my kids are getting busier. Do I do that every night? No. When we get home late from who knows what activity, I don't have any patience for it. I'm like, Xavier, sorry, buddy, no story time. You're going to bed, right? But bedtime, we can take advantage of that. And I don't do that with my 15-year-old as much anymore, but there are times I'll climb into the bunk with my 15-year-old and just cuddle and just talk about the day. Right? So I'm not doing story time necessarily, but I'll still do the busing, with her. And there's something about being when the kids are in bed and how just calm and relaxed and open they are. Prime opportunity. And we go to bed every night. So that's number two. And these are just ideas, and these aren't the only ideas, but these are ideas I give the parents. Number three, car time, right? This car time I really love when they're teenagers, especially. You've got a captive audience, Dave, right? And so like I'm gonna talk to you. And the beautiful thing, especially with teenagers, especially me as a dad, my boy is not a teenager yet, but sometimes with teenagers, having a conversation eye to eye is a little awkward for a teenager.
Hmm.
Sometimes for parents as well. There's
Oh yeah.
something
Oh yeah.
there's something about being in the car that you're both
Oh.
looking out the window and maybe you got the music playing lightly, you turn it down a little bit, and you're just talking about the day. My 15-year-old is going to get her permit next month, and then she's going to get her license in November. I'm excited about that because I'm excited for her to drive herself, but Olivia is already mourning that I'm not going to have the same amount of car time that I have with my 15-year-old because that's prime connection time. And oftentimes the only time in the day that I've got connection with the kids. So I love that. This is the number three. Number four, mealtime. My wife and I try to do this when we have mealtime. Besides trying to have meal together, which we know is harder and harder, but we know how valuable it is, we ask three questions at mealtime. Again, simple thing that we do. What was your highlight of the day? What was your low light of the day? And where did you see God today? Now, here's the last question, especially when you have young kids. They're not going to have answers all the time, and maybe we might judge the answers like that's not a good answer. Don't do that, right? If they
Yeah.
saw
Yeah.
God, they saw God,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But the bigger thing is I'm less worried about the answer and more worried about how I'm setting up my kids to know that Daddy's going to ask that question at night. What are they going to do during the day? They're going to start looking for God moving in their lives.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
And I do this and I answer those questions as well. And my wife answers those questions as well, right? So it's not just something the kids do, we do it. So, besides just horsing around at the meal and like lemonade being spilt all over, which happens, right? Highlight, low light, and where you see God. It's powerful. And maybe you can't do it every day, but if you do that a
Yeah.
couple times a week, that's huge.
Yes.
And the last one is the fifth one is memory making time, right? How do we take advantage to have downtime together? That's the important piece is downtime. Families are so busy. Like, how do we just rest together? Like
Hmm.
I'll be real with my 15-year-old, we're binging Star Wars Clone Wars on Disney Plus right
Ah,
now because I
okay.
haven't
All
seen
right.
it, right?
Okay.
And so
Okay.
honestly, after Mass on Sunday, we sat down and probably watched 5 hours of Clone Wars. Like
Okay.
John Ronaldo doesn't sit down and do that very often, but it was quality time connection. It was just us resting. We know Monday's coming right around the corner. That's important time. And so I go through those five moments and say, not so much that each of them are obvious God moments, but it's about building the family,
Hmm.
right? And having those connections and building the relationship. There's plenty of research to say that faith-filled families are typically warm families and they have warmth. What do we mean by that? They're in relationship with each other. When families and parents are working two or three jobs, which is a reality for a lot of folks, when kids are super busy, right? We need that time together as a family to build that warmth. So that's what I do. And I actually walk through that, much longer, format, but I walk through that with parents to just help them. It's like, hey, you can do this at home. And it's easy. And then I'll say, yes, we've got these resources. We've got the Gospel Found Gospel Weeklies. We've got the Family Companion Book. We got these other resources that I'm going to give them at baptism prep, I want them to walk away with different resources that they can use at home right away. Will they pick it up and use it right away? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
But it's there and they have it, and
Mhm.
I introduce it to them. It's really powerful.
As you talk about our new family companion book, we're giving those we're helping the families grow with their faith formation journey from the moment of baptism all the way to later, like confirmation and after confirmation of how the family companion book could help them. And we will give you samples and send you this right across the country. Now, Jen, I see that we're right in the middle of that meeting on that Tuesday night in the basement of the church. It's nicely decorated, it's well lit. We have it all. We're right in the middle of it. You gave them some wonderful knowledge. Do you walk them through the ceremony?
Yes, I do. I've
Okay.
done this a couple different ways, Dave. I walk them through the ceremony. At one parish I was at, we actually developed a video,
Okay.
and that takes work, and I get it. I think I have a copy of the old script that we used. If you want a
Okay.
copy of the script, Dave, I'd be happy to send it to you.
Okay.
And in the video, the reason we did a video is one, we had something lasting that we could use, that we could put on our YouTube page, we can have on the
Yep.
parish website. But then it introduced the entire staff, so we had all the staff had speaking parts. So it was a very intentional opportunity for them to meet all the different faces that might be at the parish. Yeah, we walk them through it for sure, and so that they understand the signs and symbols and the ritual, knowing that they're going to walk through it again, typically, the day of the baptism as one more refresher. But we've done it in person, but we like the video idea, simply because it breaks up, the session in the sense of, okay, you've got some group talking, you've got, a facilitator talking, but then you've got a video, right? And that, just for attention span, is just developmentally appropriate to do that for
Yep.
all ages. And so, yeah, so I do that, and part of that video not only talked about the walking through the preparation or the actual ritual, but also the theology behind some of the aspects of it, the white garment, the candle, the chrism oil, the water, right? It's
Yeah.
really important. So yeah,
And you walk them through the symbols. You walk them through each one, and you
yeah,
give them some background
right.
of why do we do this.
So here's the thing, Dave. Yes, my session was often 2 to 2.5 hours, and the
Okay.
only
So
way I could get to that is because I fed them.
yes, yes, and that's the big thing about feeding them and all that. You know, John, you know I've been to many parishes across the country, but sometimes they have what they call a crying room.
Mhm.
That they say put the kid in the crying room. And John, tell me a little bit of, tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me a little about, before baptism. I was raised in a wonderful parish in Utica, New York. My mother put me right in the front pew, and I got to see exactly what the priest was doing at all times. It was an instructional moment for me to learn, and I don't know how I ever developed into this job across the country.
The
But
Holy Spirit.
the Holy Spirit does work in mysterious ways. But as we talk about, I think maybe some people might be a little hesitant when the baby is a little fussy or something like that. How do we get over those moments?
Yeah, that is so good. I'm not a fan of crying rooms. There are moments where
That's
you need to take
hmm
your child out, right?
Yeah.
I've had with 3 kids, I've had those moments, and you got to
Yeah.
do that. But that I always encourage families to come up front, especially if you have kids at mass, because kids are short, so they can't see.
Yeah.
And how do we get kids to understand and pay attention to the mass? They have to see it. And so we invite them up to the front. So part of the way how we do that, that is something we bring up in the baptism prep. We invite them, come to mass, come see what we're doing, right? If you're not coming to
Okay.
regular
It's that
mass,
invitation,
the
yes.
invitation. By the way, side note, Dave, one of the things that we always did, depending on how many baptisms you have, it's not always realistic. But the appropriate primary place for any sacrament is within the context of the Sunday liturgy. And
Yes.
so I always, when scheduling, I always try to invite them, hey, whatever mass you go to 10 a.m. mass, let's baptize your kid at the 10 a.m. mass, right?
Yeah.
Again, a lot of us have a lot of baptisms, so that's not always realistic. A couple parishes I was at, we did mass baptisms at that 10 a.m. on Saturday. But anyways, that's a side note. But I want the congregation to see children being baptized. Anyway, side note. When I bring them up, I invite them to be up in the front so they can see it, so you can see what's happening. Now, what does that mean? It's not enough that we invite them through the baptism preparation process to come sit up front, come to mass. At times, it has to be spoken from the pulpit, from the altar, right, by the clergy who are celebrating mass. I have one of my priests here in Vegas, Father Joachim. Whenever there are really loud babies crying, he'll always say at the end of mass, that what a blessing it was to hear these children crying and being present. Because if the church is not crying, he says, the church is dying. It sounds
I kind of like that.
cliche.
I do like that.
Yeah.
I
You
do like
know,
that.
and so that makes people feel welcome and comfortable. So saying it from the altar, right, the pulpit, and training hospitality ministers to understand that, hey, the main congregation space, the main sanctuary is where we belong. So it's a culture shift. But
Hmm.
there's a reason two of my three kids are altar servers. One, dad made them. Okay, that's fair. But two, they have to sit up front. They know everything that's going on at mass, right? Because they were involved as altar servers and still are to this day. I want kids up front. We need to encourage that. And then we need to also remind parishioners that, hey, we're going to have crying babies in church sometimes. That's okay. We welcome that. We want them. And we have to say that out loud. And it's especially powerful when clergy say it,
Yes.
especially at the beginning of Mass, end of Mass, wherever it's appropriate to say that.
If you have any questions, comments, or concerns as we go along, as we enter our last 30 minutes into our presentation, please put them in the chat and we could ask John them. John, I have one more big one. I have a big question. And the biggest question is I come to this the prep with the godparents, and maybe one godparent is a little hesitant because maybe they didn't go to mass all the time.
Mm.
And maybe they're hesitant and because if I go to mass, the father's gonna and they take a back seat. How do we welcome the godparents into the conversation? How do we do that?
That's excellent. One of the things that I always do, Dave, is I invite the godparents to the baptism preparation session. Now, not all families have them picked out, and that's okay
Yes.
too, and that's fine, but we take it where they're at. But I tell them if you know your godparents already and they're local, come to the session and engage with them. One, I think that's really important. I want them as best as possible to hear the same thing that we're telling the parents, and talk about the role that they have. And what I often talk about, I do this with catechists too. I do it with sponsors. I do it with parents. I do it with all of us. It's like, what are we looking for in a catechist? What are we looking for in a godparent? What are we looking for in a mentor couple? Are we looking for perfection? No. Are we looking for encyclopedic knowledge of the church? No. What I'm looking for is someone who willing to tell their story of faith and their relationship with God. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. That's all that I want a catechist or a mentor couple or a godparent to be able to do. The knowledge can come later. Like we can
Yeah.
use AI to find any catechism quote that we want, right? That knowledge is actually easy to find. What you can't find on ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini is your own story. Dave,
Yeah.
why are you here, right? Why are you so committed to the church or not, right?
Yeah,
But
true,
but
true.
but and say all I want you to do is share that story, with with your God kid when they're old enough, right?
Yes,
But we're
yes.
not looking for anything more than someone who's willing to walk with them in life because faith encompasses all aspects of life, not just what we do at church. So yes, do I want them to come to mass? 100% come to mass. We're going to welcome you. We're going to encourage you to sit up front. We're not going to embarrass you, right? We're not going to judge you. And we need to say that stuff. We need to be that welcoming community. But really, I want you to walk with them because at some point, that kid is going to want to talk to you not just about faith, but maybe get career advice or school advice or romantic advice, right?
Mhm.
Where they're not willing to talk to mom and dad when it gets to those awkward stages. That village, that tribe, that family of families that we're trying to build. The more adults that we have surrounding kids, the better off kids are going to be in becoming just good people, generally speaking, but certainly
Mhm.
faithful people. So I really try to drill that message with the sponsors, and certainly give them resources. Give them some of the things that we talked about with the parents. Make sure they're walking home with that, but we're not looking for perfection. Look, if you're looking for a church that has no sinners in it, you're not going to find one.
No,
So join
no.
the club.
Yeah,
Welcome. This is where you
yeah.
belong because we're the same.
So we're giving them resources. We're giving them some wonderful knowledge. We have a speaker, we have hospitality. We're walking them through the sacrament. Okay. How do you end it? How do you say, okay, we're ready? Do you just do a one show and then that's it? Or maybe you do 2 weekends, or I mean 2 weeks, or you do 2 nights.
Yeah.
How many, what's the proper and what's the, I hate to say, going rate of sacramental prep?
Yeah. So I often end the sessions. This is a side note, but it's important because it's about the details. I often end the sessions with, an opportunity to talk about the details, paperwork, everything. And I always have, so, I would always have who's ever running the paperwork. Sometimes it's me, somebody else. They're present. If they have the paperwork filled out beforehand, they could turn it in. We have fillable PDFs online that they could do. But if they didn't get that all done, doesn't matter. It's all here, right? And so we make it kind of a one-stop shop where you can turn in paperwork, you can schedule it or whatnot. Here, but go ahead, Dave. You're gonna say something.
I like that, quite like what you just said. You have the paperwork online.
Yes, 100%.
And and I think that every parish should have the paperwork online, even registration for religious education. And they should have all the paperwork online. And or if many people don't have a computer or something like that, that it's accessible to them
Yeah.
right there and then. Yeah. Go ahead,
No,
John.
I
Sorry.
love it. Yeah, and then again, there's going to be families that didn't fill out the paperwork,
Oh yeah, of
even
course,
though I
of course.
emailed it to them and said that.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's why having it at the end is good. But here's why I start with just a 2 hour, 2.5 hour session, Dave, is because that's how most parishes do it.
Okay.
Would I love to see maybe a couple more sessions? Yeah. Is that going to be realistic for every parish? I don't know, right? Without jumping into your parish setting, uh, you know, so I often just start with where most parishes are at, right? And that's why I kind of come at it from this angle. This goes back though, Dave, to the idea of the mentor couples, right? And so, how does the continued formation and accompaniment and invitation happen? Yes, as the director of faith formation or whatever my title is, I'm going to stay connected with these families, obviously get the baptism schedule, get them come. One of the things that I did at a previous parish is that we would try our best to send an anniversary baptism card to every
I
family.
do like that.
Yeah.
I was instructed by a wonderful sister here in the Diocese of Syracuse that taught us that, especially in youth ministry, on the day that they were baptized, send a card to say, hey, you were baptized 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Once they got that rhythm going, you're welcoming them back, and then all of a sudden it's 5 years old. Guess where they're at? They're in
Yeah.
kindergarten. They're registering for PSR classes or CCD classes or whatever, however, whatever your diocese is calling faith formation classes. and you're registering them for religious education. So you are continuing that faith formation journey. I really do like
Yeah.
that you mentioned the cards.
And I'm gonna be honest, Dave, I didn't do it. This is a great thing for a group of volunteers to do, right?
Yeah.
Because there, and being a youth minister at heart still, right? I always talk about like I always needed volunteers to kind of work with young people, but like young people are scary to some volunteers. And so one of the things, but they wanted to help, but they just weren't
Yeah.
going to help with a youth night or confirmation. Will you be our birthday card writing committee, right? You
And
know,
that is a great thing. And I always had an Altar Rosary Society lady do it. I,
yes,
uh,
yes.
I always had a lady named Pat. She wrote those cards when I was a youth minister. That she wrote those cards out every month for me.
Yeah.
The child, even when they were in confirmation class, it's that welcoming, it's that knowledge that I do belong to this big church
Yeah.
and I am welcomed at the table. And I think that's what we need to do. If people have questions, comments, or concerns, I'm trying to monitor the chat as I go along. I don't see any questions right now, but if you have any questions, comments, or concerns for Dr. John or myself, please let me know. Um, John, how do you, so ending the evening at the parish, what do you say? What do you say to them?
Well, we certainly end in prayer. We talk about paperwork and things like that, but at the end, I always end with invitation. Okay,
Yep.
so invitation to mass, right? Invitation to whatever social event might be coming up, right? Parish picnic festivals, whatever might be going on, donuts and coffee. But then I also use it as an opportunity to invite them to consider if they need sacraments,
Very good. Yeah.
to invite them to receive the sacrament. So it is true that oftentimes, one of the spouses may not be Catholic or may not be fully initiated. That happened quite often. And
Yeah.
so I always ended with the idea, hey, if after today, your kid's getting baptized, if you're not fully initiated and you want to learn more about maybe becoming Catholic, if you're not Catholic, right? Because we do have mixed couples, right? Or you haven't received confirmation, talk to me afterwards about it. I'd love to give you the information about our adult confirmation program or our Becoming Catholic, program connected to OCIA, whatever it may be. Invite them into the sacramental journey with them. I had a friend of mine whose kid was receiving first communion with my youngest. This was a couple years ago. He was baptized in another Christian community, but wanted to become Catholic. So the same year that his eldest son got his first communion, he received his first communion and confirmation
Oh, okay.
the same year, and it became this wonderful family celebration of like here
Mhm.
we've got multiple people in our family receiving the sacraments. It was just a beautiful journey. My wife and I were able to kind of be part of that journey with them. So I invite them into that, and come talk to me afterwards about that. And so that's always a piece. So it's invitation. Come be part of our community. This doesn't end here. Obviously, we've got your baptism coming up, and if you need sacraments, come talk to me about it, and I can tell you all about it.
John, we have so many wonderful resources. We have our family companion book from the Flum Gospel Weeklies that just got their wonderful stamp of approval from the USCCB. We're so excited about that. We got the letter yesterday. I've been really so excited about that, and that our family companion book helps them with their faith formation journey. I ask anybody to reach out to your local rep. Call me, Dave Barossi. Call Jen Miller, Gina DeGroot, who's on here with us. Put it in the chat. We'll go send you some samples of our gospel weeklies. We have this wonderful little book. This is the baptism. I love this one. This is, and John, I think you and I talked about this
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, and the sacrament of baptism being part of God's family. This is a wonderful little book. We have so many great resources celebrating your child's baptism from 23rd publication. This is how to celebrate your child's baptism. right here. We have great resources. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let us know. Don, I do have one big question. I have
Yes.
one. Okay. What on earth does your love of the San Francisco 49ers have to do with Sacramento Prep?
Oh, Dave, it's so important. Actually, I'm going to move my camera here a little bit just so you can see my 49er helmet up here in the background.
Okay, go
Uh,
ahead.
so when I'm talking with the parents during baptismal sessions, I often say we get what we are.
Okay.
And they're like, well, what do we mean by that, right? And I always use the example of San Francisco 49ers. Like, I got three kids. I'm a big Niner fan. I love football, NFL.
Oh, me too.
Their
I am
draft is going
into
to be in
sports
30
all the time.
minutes. Yeah, the draft is
Yeah,
in
I'm
30
always
minutes
have a
here.
sports
So.
channel on myself, and ESPN is on all the time. Yeah, yeah.
So my wife and I are Niner fans, right? And so I asked all the parents present, I said, what are the chances that my kids are going to be San Francisco 49er fans? And they all laugh, right? They're like, well, probably like 98%. I said, that's exactly it. Why are they going to be San Francisco 49er fans? I'm in Vegas. I'm a Vegas Golden Knights fan, hockey, right? We're in the playoffs.
Oh,
Woohoo,
yeah,
yay,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
My kids are going to be Knights fans. Why? Because we are. We get what we are. And so it's funny how similar, well, it's funny, but also cringeworthy how similar I am to my parents as much as I want to deny it, right?
Okay,
Like,
all
oh, I
right.
got a little bit of mom, I got a little bit of dad, right? Well, the same thing's going to happen to our kids. And so I use that as a way to saying, look, my kids are going to be Niner fans because I'm a Niner fan, right? So it just really emphasizing that your faith, they're going to mirror your faith reality, right? We get what we are. And so if we choose to take our faith seriously and follow those 5 moments and use some of the resources that we have, then there is a higher likelihood that our kids will come into the faith. Now, nothing's a guarantee, right? The Holy Spirit works in mysterious ways, that type of
Yes.
thing, but I think that's important. So that's why the 49ers are important, Dave. They're really
Okay.
important. So,
Okay. And I know that wasn't there a draft tonight or something like that? I think the
yeah,
draft is.
yeah, it sure
So,
is.
so John, baptism is so important, and we have so many wonderful resources out there, especially from Bayard, celebrating your child's baptism from 2020, 23rd publication to Flum Gospel Weeklies to our new family companion book that's part of our Flum Gospel Weeklies, and across the country, people are jumping on the bandwagon to help the family companion walk that faith formation journey as I have done. And John, I really thank you for spending some time with me this evening. I know we're going to be seeing each other very shortly in Vegas when I'm traveling out there, and I will be out there for a while, visiting parishes and saying hello as I do my tour. Uh, Thanks, John. I really appreciate everything you have done, and thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email me, Dave Barosi. My email will be in the chat. I know Gina would put my email right in the chat. Um, if you want to have any special guests come on board, please let me know. Any special topics Jen Miller and I could talk about. Jen had to sneak away. She had another meeting to go to. She's been very busy lately. And John, I say thank you. Thank you very much. And I will be seeing you. And I hope the 49ers are in the Super Bowl, but I'm hoping the Buffalo does get them.
I won't lie. I was, Buffalo Bills are AFC, so I'm okay with that. So,
Okay, that's all good.
so.
John, thank you very much. Ladies and
You're
gentlemen, thank
welcome.
you. Again, my name is Dave Barosi, and this is my wonderful friend this evening, Dr. John Ronaldo. John, thanks again for joining us.
More than
I say
welcome.
good night to everyone. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you all. Appreciate you.